Um, Antony Blinken, outgoing Secretary of State, dropped the following video to say farewell as his tenure as the United States top diplomat winds to a close. So here is his farewell message to America. You're welcome from Tony Blinken.
My final trip as Secretary of State. So in this job, we've traveled well over 1 million miles, meeting with governments, meeting with people from all over the world. And every place I've gone, I've heard from people a strong desire to work with the United States, to do things together for the betterment of our people and people around the world.
Very uplifting.
From the beginning,
Yeah.
President Biden made clear that there were two sides of the same coin that we needed to make progress on. There's a great premium on American engagement. We know that when we're not engaged, when we're not leading, then it's likely that someone else is, or maybe just as bad, no one is. But the flip side of that coin is that more than ever before, we have to find ways to cooperate, coordinate, to work with other countries. Most of the problems that we have to solve, most of the opportunities we want to seize, we can do so much more effectively when we're doing it with others, not alone. And that's what we've seen over these past 4 years. Countries coming together to work on everything from food security, to preventing the next pandemic, to dealing with things like the synthetic opioid crisis. Our alliances, our partnerships have been at the heart of our success. Now, 4 years later, America is acting from a position of strength.
Hey, what do you think, folks? Do you think this guy has a future on Red Note? You think he should download Red Note? How are his influencer chops here? What do you think so far?
That doesn't just happen. It's a reflection of the investments we've made, the diplomacy we've exerted around the world.
I mean,
Now,
he's really
people
got
who
an
are
ear
really
for
making this
generic
happen,
music.
day in, day out,
Yeah.
are our diplomats
For sure.
around the world, in our embassies and consulates, more than 200 of them. It's been one of the great privileges of my life to work side by side with our extraordinary diplomats. This is one final opportunity for me to say to them, thank you. Thank you for the work you're doing on behalf of our fellow citizens. Thank you for what you're doing to make the world a little bit safer, a little bit more prosperous, a little bit more full of opportunity.
Oh, yeah. Safer, more prosperous, and more full of opportunity.
Where the
That's
fuck
what
do
I
you
think.
get the balls?
Exactly. That's what I think when I think the legacy of Tony Blinken.
That's amazing.
So Scott Ritter replies, "You are singularly responsible for the deaths of more than 1 million people as a result of a Russian-Ukrainian conflict you could have avoided, but facilitated because peace with Russia was never an option, only war. You took advantage of a mentally diminished president to take our nation to the brink of nuclear war with Russia, violating Constitution and due process. You're a war criminal in every sense of the word. I hope you're investigated, charged, and found guilty of betraying your nation, my country." Well, this is the thing. You know, Blinken, really, we've been saying it's been President Blinken this whole time. I mean, he really is calling the shots much more, I think, than Joe Biden. And so, yes, he is deserving of that reply by Scott Ritter there. Max Blumenthal, you've been to Israel 11 times since October 7th, which means you've logged at least 132,000 miles orchestrating the Gaza Holocaust. Your closing propaganda video features no images of you with Netanyahu, yet it is the murderous relationship which will define your entire legacy. Good point. Notice, of all the diplomats he's seen shaking hands with in that little propaganda piece, Netanyahu totally absent. Not too proud of that work, it seems, which we'll get to more in a moment. So here's a Palestinian journalist, Motassem Dalul. Liar, you've traveled 1 million miles to orchestrate, facilitate, and afford needed equipment for war crimes, including those in Gaza, where my wife, brother, sister, 2 sons, and hundreds of relatives were killed. Speaking of some truth, back to Tony Blinken there. Jackson Hinkle says, as Secretary of State, so here's a nice list, here's a nice resume, led a genocide in Gaza, slaughtered civilians in Lebanon, bombed civilians in Yemen, created al-Qaeda Syrian government, tried to overthrow African leaders, overthrew elections in Romania, tried starting World War III with Russia, got nearly 1 million Ukrainians killed, pushed China further towards war, attempted Georgian color revolution. No lies detected there. That seems like his resume, all right. Well, he spoke before the Atlantic Council, and here is a more fitting farewell for Antony Blinken. A protester disrupted U.S. Secretary of State Blinken's speech at the Atlantic Council, holding him responsible for the killing of civilians in Gaza and describing him as Bloody Blinken, Secretary of Genocide. So this was this morning, as I understand it. So here's some video.
At the same time, we strengthened America's robust sanctions regime on Iran and delivered on President Biden's commitment.
You will
Thank you. I respect your views. Please allow me to share mine. Thank you.
What a fucking dweeb.
We've held car rallies. The blood of innocent civilians, of children, is on your hands. We will not forget. We will not forget. We will hold you accountable. We will hold you accountable.
Look at this psychopath.
Yep.
So to continue. At the same time, strengthen America's robust sanctions regime on Iran.
I never thought I would say this ever in my life. I really did. But I actually think Biden may be a worse president than George W. Bush. I actually think he might be even worse because of the absolute bone-deep evil of perpetuating this genocide, which, again, I don't want to jump the gun into the next segment where we talk about the ceasefire. But when you look at how none of this should have happened, like zero. The Ukraine war, you're talking about, as Hinkle said there, almost 1 million dead Ukrainians, a country absolutely in ruins for generations to come. Gaza, look at what happened there by his own admission. Now, they're talking about Hamas has as many fighters now as they did before this onslaught began. He might even be worse. He might be. I'm not willing to say that conclusively yet, but I never even thought I would think that. I never thought I could imagine how any administration can be worse than the Bush administration, but they're giving them a run for their money. I'll say that. It is an open question now as to where I would rank them. But I think it's pretty damn close, which is a pretty fucking damning thing. It's a pretty damning thing. And this guy, Antony Blinken, he is more responsible, in my view, than Joe Biden because he has a brain in his head. Biden was gone before he stepped foot in the office. It's really Blinken's foreign policy. He was the architect of this. And as you could see, just completely unthinking and uncaring. And while we're here, sorry, I'll just get this over with before I toss to you. It's just to put a button on things. Here's Max Blumenthal. Tony Blinken has already sustained 2 long interruptions during his closing Atlantic Council speech. Blumenthal was apparently in the House, touting his own Middle East accomplishments. Your legacy is genocide, one protester shouted, causing Blinken to pause for over a minute. This is the scene outside. And then here, Blumenthal catches the final farewell, the true farewell for Antony Blinken. Here he is, his motorcade being shamed out of the venue. All right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. What are your thoughts? Where do you think?
Yeah, there are some people that you watch who have these jobs like Fat Sagar, who you say, this person is immoral. He's immoral, but he's human. And then you have others like Matthew Miller and Antony Blinken and frankly Kamala Harris, where these people are like golems, like they just don't seem to have a soul. They are just absolutely psychopathic. We've seen it with Antony Blinken when he tries to project caring for the people
Right.
who are being slaughtered, and he can't really do it. It reads as very bad attempt of somebody who doesn't quite understand feelings to pretend to have them. It's a terrible thing, right? He clearly does not care about these people being slaughtered, and he doesn't care about having his crimes thrown up in his face. Just watch him there. He's completely unperturbed, completely unbothered by it.
Right.
George Bush, you want to talk about who's worse? Yeah, George Bush, you got the sense that he kind of felt bad here and there. Not that that vindicates him in any way. You got the sense that he had some capacity for guilt and shame.
Right.
Biden, as you say, he's gone. But you look at Blinken's reaction to those accusations, just absolutely no feeling. And that's part of the tragedy, because you watch these motorcades driving away and these protesters out there calling him to account. He doesn't have enough of a human soul to care. Like, he doesn't care. He's rich.
Right.
He's going to stay that way. His
Yeah.
social circle is not going to hold him accountable, right? He'll be fine. He's not going to go to the kinds of parties that Antony Blinken will be invited to for the rest of his life and have anyone call him out. They'll all laugh about how the peasants don't understand real politic, and you do what you have to do, and the world's complicated, and that's it. There's no accountability. And Trump, in spite of, hey, we're all very happy at the turn things seem to be taking, what, he's going to hold him to account?
Well,
These people are never going to pay a price.
Please clap.